On a cold winter morning, Fatima sat by the window of her small house, gazing at the snowflakes gently falling to the ground. She had been thinking about the years that had passed, wondering how her life had unfolded. Despite being surrounded by people, friends and coworkers, there was always a sense of loneliness that lingered within her. She often felt that something was missing. There was no deep connection, no genuine interaction to fill the empty spaces of her heart. Fatima lived in a modest house on the outskirts of the city, a place that used to offer her peace and comfort. However, over time, her home began to feel like an isolating cocoon. Her job as a designer demanded long hours of concentration, and as the days passed, she found herself drifting further into solitude. The people around her seemed like mere faces, and the friendships she had formed felt shallow, leaving her with a nagging sense that she was alone in a crowd. One day, while returning from work, Fatima walked by a pet store that she had never noticed before. At the entrance, there was a small cage, and inside it, a tiny puppy with big, bright eyes. The puppy's gaze met hers, and something stirred in Fatima's heart. She stopped in her tracks, drawn to the innocent expression of the dog. For a brief moment, the world around her seemed to fade away. "Hi, would you like to meet the puppy?" the store owner asked, noticing her hesitation. Fatima smiled softly. "He looks so cute," she replied. "He's a Dalmatian, only 2 months old. He needs someone to care for him." "He'll be a great companion," the man said. Something in his words resonated with Fatima. Without fully understanding why, she decided to enter the store and inquire further. It was the first time she had felt this strong an urge to make such a decision. The puppy, with his soft fur and curious eyes, seemed to call out to her. The store owner handed her the tiny Dalmatian, and as soon as she held him in her arms, a wave of warmth filled her chest. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time, like something had clicked into place. She knew, then and there, that her life was about to change. She named him Sammy. From that moment, Sammy wasn't just a pet, he became Fatima's companion in the truest sense of the word. His presence filled her life in ways she never expected. He was her little source of joy, constantly bouncing around her, wagging his tail, and bringing a playful energy into the quiet corners of her home. Fatima started taking Sammy on long walks through the neighborhood, feeling a new sense of connection with the world around her. Sammy would chase after birds, sniff at every tree, and drag her along with his enthusiasm. She laughed more than she had in years. Days turned into weeks, and Fatima began to realize that Sammy was more than just a cute puppy, he had become her source of comfort. In the evenings, when the loneliness would creep back in, Sammy would curl up by her feet or snuggle next to her on the couch. He didn't speak, but somehow, his silent presence provided more comfort than words could ever convey. But life, as it always does, threw a challenge their way. One day, Sammy fell ill. He stopped eating and became lethargic. Fatima was beside herself with worry. She rushed him to the vet, where they discovered he had an intestinal infection. The vet assured her that with the right care and medication, Sammy would recover, but it would take time. During those difficult weeks, Fatima's bond with Sammy grew even deeper. She spent hours tending to him, making sure he had his medicine, keeping him hydrated, and comforting him when he seemed to be in pain. She watched him slowly regain his strength, and every small improvement filled her with relief. Sammy had become her family, and she realized how much he had become a part of her life. As time passed, Fatima received unexpected news from her workplace. The company had decided to transfer her to a branch in another city, a much larger, more fast-paced place. It was an opportunity she couldn't turn down, but it also meant she would be leaving behind the life she had known. It wasn't just her friends and colleagues she would miss, it was Sammy, too. How could she take him with her? How could she leave him behind? Sitting alone that evening, Fatima looked at Sammy as he slept peacefully on the couch. She stroked his fur gently, feeling a surge of emotion. Sammy, like always, seemed to understand. He was there beside her, a steady source of comfort amidst the uncertainty. As Fatima gazed out the window at the winter night, she made a decision. She couldn't imagine her life without Sammy. No matter what the future held, she knew he would be with her. When the time came, Fatima moved to the new city, and she brought Sammy with her. Though the city was bustling and unfamiliar, Sammy was there every step of the way, helping her adjust. They would take walks in the park, explore new streets, and find quiet places where they could relax together. The transition wasn't easy, but with Sammy by her side, Fatima felt like she could face anything. Life in the new city was different, but it was also full of new opportunities and experiences. Fatima learned that the companionship she had with Sammy wasn't just about having a pet. It was about a deep, unspoken bond, one that provided her with the emotional support she had always longed for. Sammy was her teacher in many ways. He showed her that love didn't need to be complicated, and that even the smallest of creatures could change a life in the most profound ways. Fatima's world had expanded, not because of the city or her job, but because of the little dog who had come into her life and taught her what true companionship really meant. The bond they shared was unshakable, and it was a reminder that sometimes, the truest and most loyal friends come in the most unexpected forms. And so, Fatima's days, once filled with loneliness, were now brightened by the simple presence of Sammy. They faced the world together, two companions in a big, bustling world, but always finding peace and joy in each other's company. As Fatima settled into her new life, she realized that the city, despite its chaos and constant movement, had begun to feel less daunting with Sammy by her side. Every morning, she would wake up to the soft sound of Sammy's paws patting across the floor, his eager eyes looking up at her as if to say, "Let's start the day." There was comfort in his presence, a feeling that everything would be all right as long as they had each other. The city had its share of challenges. Fatima had to learn new routes to work, adjust to the hustle and bustle of her new job, and navigate unfamiliar streets. The constant noise, the crowded cafes, and the fast-paced lifestyle sometimes overwhelmed her. But at the end of the day, when she returned to her apartment, Sammy was there waiting for her, his tail wagging, his joyful greeting more reassuring than anything else. It was in these moments that Fatima found solace. She began to look forward to their daily walks even more. The city was full of parks, busy streets, and hidden corners that felt like small oases. They would often visit a nearby park in the evenings, where Sammy could run freely while Fatima sat on a bench, watching him. Sometimes, she would bring her sketchbook, drawing the scenes around her, capturing the fleeting moments of their day. Sammy would sit by her feet, occasionally nudging her hand as if reminding her that it was time to go home. One evening, as they walked through the park, Fatima found herself reflecting on how far she had come. She had once been a woman trapped in her own solitude, unsure of how to break free from the loneliness that consumed her. But now, she was different. The quiet companionship she shared with Sammy had taught her that the small, everyday moments were just as valuable as the grand milestones in life. It was the simple joy of being together that made all the difference. In the quiet of the park, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Fatima realized something profound. Sammy wasn't just a dog, he was her teacher. He had shown her that love didn't need to be grand or loud, it could be simple, quiet, and steadfast. He had taught her patience, loyalty, and the art of living in the present. With him, Fatima had learned that true companionship didn't come from expecting anything in return, it came from being there for each other, no matter the circumstances. One evening, as they sat together on a park bench, the cool breeze brushing their faces, Fatima smiled as she looked at Sammy, who had his head resting on her lap. She stroked his fur, lost in the peace that had settled over her life. She thought back to the woman she had been when she first moved to the city, unsure and uncertain of her place in the world. Now, she felt different. She felt grounded, secure, and more connected to herself and the world around her. Sammy had filled the emptiness she had once felt, and in his silent, loving way, he had helped her rediscover what it meant to live fully. That evening, Fatima made a promise to herself. She would continue to cherish these moments with Sammy, knowing that no matter where life took her, he would always be by her side. They had created a bond that was unbreakable, one that transcended the boundaries of words, one that was felt in the quiet moments, the shared experiences, and the unconditional love they gave each other. As the days went by, Fatima's life became more vibrant. She joined a small group of artists who met regularly at a cafe to share their work and ideas. She made new friends, people who understood her artistic vision and shared her love for quiet moments. Sammy would often accompany her to these gatherings, lying at her feet or playing with other dogs, content in his own world. But Fatima knew that in his presence, her life was richer, fuller, and more complete. Months passed, and the bond between Fatima and Sammy only deepened. They had gone through so much together, the uncertainty of a new city, the trials of adjusting to a new job, and the quiet moments of shared happiness. Through it all, Sammy remained her constant, her true companion. One day, as Fatima sat by the window in her apartment, watching the sunset over the city skyline, she realized that she had finally found her place. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. And it was all because of the love and companionship that Sammy had brought into her life. As she watched him play with a toy in the corner of the room, his excitement and energy bringing a smile to her face, Fatima knew one thing for certain: no matter where life would take her next, she would never face it alone. Sammy had taught her that sometimes, the best companions come in the smallest packages, and that love, true, unwavering love, could be found in the most unexpected of places. And so, Fatima and Sammy continued their journey together, side by side, living in the moment and savoring the quiet joy of simply being there for each other. In a world full of noise and chaos, they had found peace in their shared companionship, and that was enough to make every day a little brighter, every moment a little sweeter. This is the continuation of the story, emphasizing the evolving bond between Fatima and Sammy, how it transforms her life, and the quiet lessons of companionship, loyalty, and love.